Everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Yegor Sak, co-founder at Windscribe and Control D. Windscribe is a leading internet security and privacy company. Control D is a DNS filtering and productivity platform. Yegor, so exciting to not only to chat with you about your experience as a founder, but also the products that you're working on are so interesting because I think that they not only serve a purpose in terms of ability to access information and do what normal people want to do, the freedom to access that without, as I'm sure you'll extract the I guess boundaries and I guess bad actors that we face in the internet. But before we get into all that, you mentioned in the show notes before the episode that you have this backyard bunker. What is going on with this backyard bunker? Tell me a little bit about the thing that you've created.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Look forward to our chat. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an interesting way to start off the chat. I mean, the backyard bunker, that was a little project that myself and another, co-founder of Windscribe that we did before Windscribe even existed. So what we did was I bought a shipping container and then we've kind of retrofitted it from the inside out, like all the way inside, reinforced it on the outside. In the process, learned a lot of trades, everything from welding to drywalling to attaching carpets to the ceiling, like all kinds of stuff. It was like a pretty wacky thing. The only thing we didn't do was the electrical work. And that's basically what doomed it in the end.
Really?
I live in an area where there's a lot of groundwater and I actually get water from the ground. I have a water well at home, right? I'm not up to any city. So in the springtime, there's a lot of meltwater. And what ended up happening is basically the whole thing got flooded.
Man.
Yeah. No, there were contingencies in place because we expected that to be the case. There were multiple pumps that were meant to pump the water out. However, the primary pump failed and I didn't notice it in time. So by the time the backup pump ran out of batteries, because the backup was battery operated, the whole thing flooded.
Oh man, is it still there?
I can't confirm or deny that because the city wanted me to get it out.
Well, we won't ask any more questions about it, but that's an amazing story. And tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started Windscribe.
Right. So, I mean, I've been doing all kinds of stuff before Windscribe. Like, I mean, if we start real early, in the early 2000s, I was quote unquote a webmaster of a whole bunch of websites that I built and operated. One person operation, you come up with an idea, you make it, you host it, eventually someone visits, and then you can put up some ads. I mean, that was pretty much the only way to monetize at that point. Since then, I've graduated to operating a software development company for a while, building other people's ideas. But then I kind of got sick of it, just working on other people's projects and decided, hey, I should probably do something on my own again. And came to be about a year later.
Yeah, interesting in terms of building other people's ideas and that whole process, because I've seen it from the other lens when founders come to my company and because we connect founders with developer talent, there's a lot of intricacies that either go really well with working with a team of people who develop a product and things that, may not go well. And then there's a lot of debt that's accrued during that whole process. How do you kind of work with founders and work with other companies building those products to make sure that not only are you reaching or building what they're expecting or what they're looking for, but also that the whole build kind of goes successful and can transition maybe into an internal team? How do you go through that building process with the founder?
Right. Well, I mean, that was a long time ago. And I honestly, I hated every single moment of it. So I'm not sure I could give you any kind of like good insights on that. I mean, you want to be able to like fully understand what the hell you're building. And ideally you want to kind of like build it for yourself, right? As if you're going to be using it. If you're building a product that you intend to use yourself, you have a much higher chance of succeeding, whether it's a contract job for someone else or whether you're working on your own startup, right? I think a lot of people kind of like develop things that, oh, this will be useful to someone, but they themselves are not that someone. And that usually results in garbage being built that no one really wants to use.
Yeah. How many of the products do you think that you built that you felt maybe didn't have a big enough TAM to actually warrant a build?
I mean, the vast majority of the projects that I did, I wouldn't really call them products because this is, like a while ago. These are, I call them websites that generate traffic and then you monetize them through some means. But I mean, over the years, I probably had at least maybe 50 to 60 projects that I've worked on. The vast majority of them were complete failures and waste of time. However, you do learn what works and what doesn't, and you learn some programming along the way, which definitely helped me later on.
Yeah, yeah. And describe the technology and what was the inspiration behind going into building? Obviously, you want to transition into something else, but why Windscribe? Why work within this space? And also, I know you're running two companies, Control D, along with it. And as you mentioned before the show, it's an internal product. But what was the inspiration behind Windscribe and that led to this whole journey? What, 6 years later?
Right. So, I mean, that kind of started like when we were working on the very last project for someone else, which was a daily fantasy sport website. That was like around the time when DraftKings and FanDuel just came out. So we're building basically a competitor service to that. And I am not a sports person. I don't know anything about sports. I don't watch sports. I don't follow any sports. So getting your, I guess, teeth into something that I have zero interest in, it was very tedious. We built something, it was pretty good in the end. At least I thought so, but it didn't end up really going anywhere for the person who commissioned it for us. But at the time it's kind of, okay, I honestly, I dislike all of this. And what do I actually enjoy and personally use that is not the greatest thing? And VPNs came to be that thing. I've used VPNs for quite a while before, probably for well over, and maybe probably 50 years or so. Right. And VPNs at the time were very techie that, people with very large beards, and I used to have a very large beard too. Shaved a couple of days, but anyway, it was targeted at a very techie individual, not your average Joe, right? And then we thought that, hey, we can do better. We can make something that's equally not equally, more useful than what existed out there, and make it accessible to the average Joe. Like, just download an app, press the big on button, and just let it do its thing. And if you happen to be a technical user, I consider myself a technical user, to still have all the features kind of be part of the service. If you need them, they're there. But if you don't, you can just have a very simple experience.
Yeah. And for those users, or for those in the audience who don't know what a VPN is, or don't use it religiously, what is the, I guess, driving force to use a VPN and use technology like that?
Right. I think in the last few years, a lot of people learned about VPNs because every single YouTube channel seems to be sponsored by a VPN these days. Yeah. Even channels that have nothing to do with security or privacy or anything of that sort. But, most of them are willing to sponsored by whoever pays the bills, which is fair on the part of the creators. But we kind of have like a very different approach to this. Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself. So whatever you've heard about VPNs from your favorite YouTubers, a lot of those things are just not true, right? That's just sales. They're engaging in basic marketing of a product that should not be marketed this way. At its core, what does VPN do? Right? It basically changes your IP address. Yeah. Effectively, you connect to a remote server, and that remote server becomes call it your router, right? So instead of your home router, I mean, I'm simplifying this. This is not accurate. I'm just giving you an analogy. That server becomes your router. So when you're browsing the internet, all your activity appears to be originating from that server, and whatever IP address of that server is in whichever country that server happens to be in. Yeah. That's basically all a VPN will do. So that alone, be like, oh, it changes your IP address. Cool. So you're anonymous now, right? No, you're not. VPN will do actually very little for your privacy. Virtually nothing outside of a few niche use cases, like torrenting your favorite distro or whatever you might be downloading. In those cases, it's pretty clear cut. Your IP is masked, and you're not going to get those DMCA letters. But for anything related to privacy, that is not the case. Like, why is that the case? When you browse around, and most of the time you're probably on your mobile device using an app, this app or any single website has a ton of trackers built in. Right. In the case of apps, not only just trackers, but also it has access to your GPS, it has access to your microphone, it has access to your camera, probably if it's a messaging app. So with all these sensors that they're accessible by whoever operates the service, your IP address is virtually irrelevant if they can literally read your GPS coordinates that the app is supplying. All right. And as well as tracking services. When you go on any single website, a news site, let's say a news website, you will go to get the news, right? You will end up downloading the news, whatever the content is on that website, but you're going to end up downloading maybe like 2 to 3 times more tracking and ad code than the actual content. And then you're basically leaking your information to sometimes dozens, in some extreme egregious cases, to hundreds of different tracking platforms that collate all this information to build profiles so they can target you through other channels. And IP address there, again, has very little impact here. It's still going to be tracked regardless of now your IPs in Japan. Great. Means nothing for you.
Yeah.
Which is why Windscribe kind of works a bit differently. So it is a VPN at its core. It does all of the things I mentioned earlier. But what I would say it sets it apart is that we have pretty robust kind of filtering capabilities. By filtering, I mean, you can kind of self-censor the internet for yourself, but for good purposes. But you can censor all ads and trackers from loading on your device, which is super handy on mobile, where you can install like uBlock or AdBlock extensions, which are super handy in desktop browsers, but there's no such thing for mobile. So ours works server side, so it strips away all this garbage before it even reaches your device. And then if you can't access a tracker, you can leak your information to this tracker. That's basically, that's part of it anyway.
Yeah. And describe, for those who don't know, the restrictions that a lot of people may not be aware of in terms of if your IP address is in one country versus another. Describe the differences in terms of how things are regulated, because I don't think people are very much aware. Obviously, we think about privacy, think about accessibility, but I don't think a lot of people think about the restrictions that they have on top of that.
Right. Well, it really depends which country you happen to live in, right? If you live in the West, like North America or Western Europe, most people that use VPNs, they do it because they just want to be more private. They don't want to leak their information, their browsing history to their ISP, for example. And ISPs do collect browsing history in the United States, in Canada, and many other European countries. This data is stored for many, many months. So at some point in the future, someone will be, hey, this account right here, I want to see every single website that they visited in the last 6 months. And that data is available and will be handed over by most ISPs. So in the West, people are like, okay, I don't want them to have this information. I'm going to use a VPN just it's a personal preference. If you happen to be living in other places in the world, like China, Iran, Russia, most of the Middle East, some African countries where internet is heavily censored and monitored and the information is restricted, heavily restricted in many cases, including those countries that I mentioned. People over there don't really care about their privacy or not leaking stuff to their ISP. Well, I mean, they kind of do, but their main thing is they want to be able to access information that is not available in the country, because on BBC News, that website does not exist in Russia, for example, or many, many other Western services and news agencies and Wikipedia. All of that is just not available for literally like billions of people worldwide.
Yeah.
So those who want access to information that we deem for granted use VPNs in order to do so, right?
Yeah.
As well as if you happen to be any kind of like dissident or doing any kind of activism in those countries, being caught doing those things can result in jail time and in some extreme cases worse, right?
Yeah.
So VPNs are one of the tools that people in those countries should use to enhance their level of privacy. And by no means is it the ultimate bulletproof solution that you just turn on a VPN and you're good. It is not. It's just one of the tools that you should be using. Great deal of other things that one should be aware of if that's the situation you happen to be in. Using VPN alone will probably land you in jail if you're not careful.
Yeah. And when you're using a VPN, are you able to toggle between the different types of countries that the server is going to be hosted on? What amount of flexibility do you have when I guess working with Win in particular?
Right. No, I mean, most of the VPNs work very similar. They give you a list of countries that you can connect to. And in many of the cases, the server itself will be physically in that country. That is not always true. Some VPNs will lie about their server locations and say, oh yeah, you're connected to this country, but the server is actually not in that country. It just looks that like it is based on the IP information, but it's physically not in that jurisdiction. So that could be dangerous in many places, in some situations. But people who are living in restricted countries, they just want to be able to connect to any place that's outside of their country. That's basically the only thing they're looking for. You want to connect to a place that has open internet. That's basically what you're looking for. It doesn't really matter if it's Canada or Netherlands or some other European country. Ideally, you want to connect somewhere close by where your performance is not going to be impacted too much, but you want that place to be a lot freer than the country that you're in. If you happen to be living in the West, one of the other kind of major use cases I would say for VPNs is bypassing geographic restrictions, where there's a lot of content and streaming services or just general websites that are restricted to those who are in one specific country or region. If you don't happen to live there, you can use that service.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expats living all across the world. They want to be able to consume their whole content or have access to things that require them to be physically in the country. So they use VPNs in order to kind of like spoof their physical location to appear in that place in order to do whatever they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And describe to us Control D. How did the idea and the concept kind of grow? I know it's an internal product, but describe what that does in particular. And also, how is it running two companies at the same time? Because I know the difficulty of managing one, I can only imagine how much more difficult it would be managing two.
Right. Yeah, no, it's honestly, it's too much work. It really is. But no, Control D was kind of born out of Windscribe. So Windscribe is primarily targeting consumers, consumer users, your average Joes. We do have some business clients. We do have team offerings for if you want to secure your whole team, but that's not really our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is working with consumers. Control D is not a VPN service. It's not meant to be used if you're living in a restricted country. It's an entirely different type of service based on how it works. It's a DNS level service. So I'm not sure how familiar I am with DNS services. But what DNS really does is when you type in google.com, a DNS server will tell you what the IP address is of google.com, right?
Okay.
And then your computer just connects to Google because google.com has no meaning to computers. So that's pretty much what Control D does. However, it's customizable. So you can create your own policies of what things you want to be resolved on your network and what things you do not. So the use cases being, you can use it for parental controls. If you're, kids on your network, block porn sites, you can block gambling, you can block all kinds of stuff or create screen time of where your device simply is not going to be able to access the internet when you should be working, so not working, doing school or sleeping. And for business level use cases, public Wi-Fi, school, and smaller organizations that manage smaller networks. We're concentrating on the smaller organizations right now while building out the service. But we have a pretty lengthy roadmap in terms of what we're going to be offering there. And currently what's available is very much beta for power users. And then we're going to be evolving it into a highly business weighted service in the late part of 2023.
Yeah. But you mentioned one thing in the notes before was that, which is, it's just fascinating to me as a founder myself, which is the ability to become profitable. And I think month 2 is what you said, which was shocking to me because most companies don't see profitability for a while. What in particular was, I don't know if there's a secret sauce or an advice. Was it bootstrapping? Was it focusing on one particular thing? What advice would you give to founders who are looking to reach that level of success in such a more short amount of time? And level of success is just meaning not having to think about your burn all the time, so your runway doesn't run out.
Yeah, pretty much. So, Windscribe never raised any money, right? So we're 100% privately owned. The initial investors, quote unquote, were myself and the other 2 co-founders using the money that we've earned doing other projects before, right? I mean, we weren't doing stuff for free before. We did have revenue and we saved a lot of it to do other stuff in the future. So we kind of financed it ourselves during development, which took about a year, right?
Yeah.
And when I mean, like when we became profitable month 2, I mean, it paid for its own server infrastructure and whoever else was working other than the co-founders. We were still getting paid nothing. We were only able to kind of like start declaring some salaries several months after that. And those were just enough not to like starve to death, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of how to do it, I mean, we did a lot of the work ourselves. We're all technical. Like we don't have any non-technical co-founders, but we did everything that we possibly could ourselves, and things that we couldn't do, that's the only thing that we would kind of get external outsource help. At that point, it was just mostly contractors, not to keep anyone permanently. But as soon as we started generating steady revenue, that's when we started kind of scaling up a permanent team in Canada.
Yeah. So it's amazing that you and your co-founders are all technical because of the ability to not only build, but then test and then reiterate on improving the product over time. When you think back on that journey, is there anything that you know now that back then you wish you knew sooner?
I mean, this probably doesn't also answer the question, but it's kind of like an additional thing. Don't use clouds. If you want to run stuff on the cheap and not burn crazy amounts of money, it might be convenient. Like, oh yeah, cloud, I can just get all these VMs and all these nice button pressy services. That stuff costs money. And for that niceness, you're paying at least 3x, in some cases, 10x of what it would cost if you just got some bare metal machines, set them up yourself, virtualize them if you'd like, and run your own little cloud. But you can convert your time into huge savings long-term.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of like raise money and then say, oh yeah, we're just going to spend millions of dollars on this cloud thing. but hey, maybe you don't need to burn that much money if you
Yeah.
hire some competent people to manage your infrastructure for you, or you do it yourself, ideally, because then that's the cheapest option by far.
Tell us a little bit about the traction. How many users do you have using Windscribe? And then how many do you expect to, not only the traction up to now, but what is what's the excitement level for the next year and what you're looking to build and map out?
Right. So a lot of our metrics are actually public. We try to be as transparent as possible. I mean, that comes from like all our software that runs on your machines is open source. Find all of our clients open source on our GitHub, and our kind of activity numbers are also public on our website. You can find them in the footer. I think we're past like 50 million users a few months ago, like close to 55. Honestly, I haven't looked at it in a while. Obviously, that's not active users. Sure. That's kind of how many people have ever tried Windscribe. Our active users are a subset of that total, and most of them are free users because we do operate in a freemium model where vast majority of people don't pay us anything, and only single digit percentages end up paying us for premium subscriptions, and that's kind of what finances everything, including free offerings.
Yeah. And what are the biggest challenges that Windscribe faces today?
I would say, that's a good point. I think like VPN market and just the industry in general, I would say it's a very toxic industry in terms of how it's marketed and promoted. There's a lot of players in it. I would say there's probably hundreds of VPNs. There's probably like 10 major ones, and probably 5 of them you've heard every single YouTube channel, most likely. Yeah. So it's like a very crowded industry, and it's being like the marketing angle of it is what really annoys me, because we do not market at all. Our ad spend is zero, and pretty much has always been zero. We had an affiliate program for a while. We discontinued the affiliate program a few years ago because we found it's kind of like, it's a very kind of dishonest, in a sense that there's a parasitic industry that exists alongside VPNs. It's called the VPN review industry. Like, you will type in best VPN, you're going to see like a lot of sites that will rank them based on all these scientifically sounding metrics, and they're going to go talk about stuff. All of that is total bullshit. The only metric that they rank VPNs on is CPA, or who pays the most for sign up if I send you a click. Yeah. Right. And you don't have to take my word for it. I do write quite a bit of stuff on our blog, and we do publish some very button pressy kind of content about the industry, where basically telling it how it is with proof of what I'm talking about. It is true. Yeah. That is how, in fact, VPNs get ranked on vast majority of VPN review websites. They're not all like that, but I would say 99% are. Yeah. In many cases, if you actually dig into the numbers, some VPNs were acquired, some large VPNs that you've heard about were acquired for less money than VPN review sites that review them. Just think about that.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I want to come back. No, I'm just going to jump on it. This whole, I think a lot of founders are working towards creating a lot of educational content and becoming very much informative. I think there's a huge shift in the market now, especially where companies are really investing in educating their customer base and those potential customers as well. For founders out there who are maybe trying to focus on multiple aspects of the business, but don't maybe spend enough time creating educational content, what advice would you give them in terms of that creation? Obviously, you've been in the space a while, you intimately know your product and the space, but is there any structure or any strategy that you use when developing this content that other founders can kind of take on themselves? I'm asking this selfishly as well.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's like creating educational content that helps educate and hopefully potentially like a little bit of entertainment as well. It's precisely what we're working on right now. We've kind of significantly ramped up our content production from blog writing, video work. We have like a full in-house animation department where we produce all content internally. A lot of it is outsourced because we want it to be kind of like fit our brand. Like our comms and just general PR is very not traditional in a sense of how most other VPNs kind of communicate with their customers. We're extremely informal. We do memes, our promotional emails, if you can even call them that, there's a lot of lunacy in them. And
Sure.
I would say like most people really enjoy the amount of effort that we put into the borderline insane promotional emails. And by insane, I mean because the deals are so great. I'm talking about like what we talk about and how
Sure.
we talk about. A lot of this is actually posted in our blog so you can get a taste of how ridiculous they are. But like scaling, like since we cannot pay people to talk about us because we find that kind of dishonest and we don't market, we have to kind of generate our own eyeballs and creating content that is helpful, that educates, that amuses, and hopefully has some kind of tie into your company and your services. It seems like a really good approach. And I'm not going to tell you that it's amazing and everybody should do it, because we're literally in the process of kind of like scaling all of that up to I would say a year ago, we weren't really doing any educational content. All of our growth was pretty much word of mouth and just us talking to our users and building things that they want us to build, and kind of having this like very close dialogue. Like we maintain a very active Discord server where a lot of our staff hang out, and sort of our users, like thousands of them online at any given moment, and they can talk to the staff. They can suggest ideas. They can tell us what sucks, what's broken. They happen to like survey our latest and greatest versions of all our applications. We can get direct feedback and iterate faster. And but people really appreciate it when they can talk to the founders or the developers, and their suggestions get taken seriously, implemented, and resolves their problem or gives them some functionality that they requested. Those people will be your customers for life, and these will be your best brand ambassadors that money can't buy.
Right. Yeah. Word of mouth, I think, is something that most founders covet as what they want to get to in terms of the referral network and the process behind that.
But at the same time, like we don't advertise, but advertising clearly works. Our competitors who do spend a lot of money on ad advertising and sponsorships and CPA, they're bigger than us, right? We're not the biggest like kid on the block. They are bigger than us. They have more users than us. They have more employees than us. But we're more interested in sustainable and honest growth rather than paying $100 million to everyone to say false things about the capabilities of our product and then make it impossible to cancel, which is the status quo of the industry. But not with us. You can totally cancel it. You can cancel a service without talking to anyone. You can press a button. No one's going to harass you. You don't have to pay us money. Fine. Be our guest.
I love that.
Everything's above board.
Yeah. You can definitely tell that you built the product for yourself as well, because I'm sure as somebody who uses VPNs, you've gone through that experience and really make it a point to not have that user experience, which I think is very admirable. But also, I think that's the right thing that most founders should do is build that product so that they can have as easy of a journey through the life cycle of it as they would want themselves to go through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And every single suggestion, like, hey, do I see value in this, or would I personally use this myself? It's like, okay, no, maybe like I won't use it every day, but I see there's value in this suggestion as opposed to, oh, that person suggested, okay, let's better build this. Maybe whatever that person suggested is only needed by that one person on this entire planet. And you're going to be then chasing feature suggestions, which are useless to everyone other than one person, right? So you also have to have critical thinking, and being a user of your own product and building it basically for yourself has advantages.
Yeah. I love to go into this next section. I call it the founder FAQs. So I'm going to hit you with a couple rapid fire questions, and then we'll extract some of your knowledge that other founders can utilize. First off, what's the hardest part about your job?
I mean, the hardest part is the fact that I have probably 15 jobs, maybe more, and kind of like fitting everything all in one day, and then not having 24 hours in a day is very limiting for me. So kind of basically juggling a lot of things and being hooked into every single team and communications and quote unquote marketing and finances and everything else. Just juggling all this stuff at the same time is probably the biggest challenge and the biggest kind of detriment right now, which I'm kind of like actively working on to reduce my workload on these random areas. And they're all important, but I feel I need to kind of like dedicate more time towards things that have like a kind of like a bird's eye view, as opposed to being in the trenches. And I'm in the trenches quite a bit, dealing like I'm still talking to customers. I do support every once in a while, even though we have a fairly sizable support team. I still find it valuable to talk to people who have issues with the product or unhappy about something to figure out, okay, like what can we do to make this better?
Yeah.
And I do that too much, I would say, to my own detriment, where I'm constantly context switching, and it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you were to build a new technology today or a new product today, what technology would you build it out of in terms of the languages you'd use, the frameworks, I know you said you're against the cloud service first, so we'll stay away from cloud.
Does it have to be a tech company?
Maybe not. No.
I would do a chemical company right now.
Is that right?
Yeah. And specifically, I would disrupt the toilet paper industry by eliminating the need for someone to wipe their butt after going number 2. I have an idea. And honestly, once I have more time, I'm totally going to do this.
I love that. I love that. For founders out there, where do you go to hire good talent?
Referrals.
Yeah.
We're trying to like, we have like a very, I would say we have pretty good work culture, and we have external kind of like HR companies that kind of like help us with HR. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but we did several kind of like surveys, and she's spoken to everyone in the team. She said that from the response rate that we had the highest and the most positive response rates of any company that they've ever worked with in terms of the responses from the team, how happy everyone is with what they're doing. And are we perfect? Though we're obviously not, but we had pretty high grades in terms of, you know, the company health, our work culture and everything. So when we kind of like, when everybody's so happy and pleased, they obviously want people who are smart, or their friends or colleagues from previous jobs to also co-work with us. So like kind of like referrals has been our kind of a best hiring channel, but not the only one. We work with headhunters. We do everything that everybody else is doing, but referrals has been our best source of new talent.
Yeah. How do you maintain a strong work culture? And is your team remote, or is it most of them in office? How do you kind of maintain that your employees are being fulfilled? And I think fulfillment is the better word instead of happy or satisfied or whatever, because I think fulfillment, it hits different layers of the life cycle of an employee.
Yeah. So, I mean, before COVID, this office that I'm sitting in used to be full because, well, we were primarily in Canada based. We did have a couple extra foreign contractors, but before COVID, we were primarily Canada based, working physically out of the space that I'm in. However, since COVID, we've kind of opened the floodgates for remote work. Everybody's remote now. Pretty much no one shows up at the office other than myself, another co-founder, and the occasional person who is tired of sitting at home. So people will come here every once in a while, but on an average day, there's like 2 to 3 people here. So we do have a lot of space. I mean, run circles here, and we do have a bunch of amusing things at the office, but but we're pretty much remote, much like most other companies these days.
Yeah. And how do you maintain that culture to still be intimate and still be cohesive?
We do, like, I'm not a huge fan of meetings, but they are necessary in a sense that, especially if you have a remote team, for everybody to get on a group video call. So we have group video calls every week, basically company stand-ups. Each team has their own individual stand-ups, but we have company-wide ones every single week, every Friday, where everybody gets a chance to speak about what they did that week, what was interesting, what wasn't, did they have any like trouble. So everybody's kind of aware, everybody's working on, everybody sees each other. We do get-togethers in the real world every once in a while, but since, you know, about half the team at this point is in Canada, the other half is distributed across the world. It makes it a bit more challenging to get everyone under the same roof. And by challenging, and it's pretty much impossible to get everyone under the same roof. But yeah. If you had a magic wand, and you were to have one wish, what would be your wish for what your company would need right now? Okay, that's an interesting question. Honestly, look, it wouldn't be money. Like, we don't need it, kind of like investments or anything. I don't know. Like, for all our efforts that we're putting into kind of educational content and kind of like distributing what we stand for, like our ethics, and everybody's aware, who's aware of these things, like, oh yeah, this is like super amazing, and that's one customer. For more people to kind of know what we stand for and know what makes us different from your run-of-the-mill VPN that your favorite YouTuber is hawking every single video with a limited promo code that gives you X% off, which nothing is off and nothing is free. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And last question is whether it's early in your career or now, what books or people have influenced you the most?
Hmm. Well, honestly, I'll be frank. I don't really do a lot of like business or like self-help books. I used to for a time, and mostly in audio form. And what I realized is like, yeah, I mean, there's some good points that every single book makes, but I mean, those points could be summarized in a 1 to 2 page document. And a lot of it is common sense. So whenever I do read or listen to something, it's almost always science fiction at this point, and as a means to not learn something new, because I'm learning something new every single day while I'm working 12 hours a day at the computer. Like self-education has been a linchpin of my quote unquote career over the years. I've never had any formal training in anything related at all. My university degree is in political science. All right, so self-education is secondhand. Is self-education secondhand to me. So whenever I do like science fiction, it kind of allows me to disconnect from being constantly in this world and thinking about work all the time, every day, on the drive home, on the drive back, on the weekends. It's a healthy kind of like palate cleanser. And then once you come out of that, you kind of like a fresh state of mind that allows you to think in more unique and different ways, which pays dividends, I would say, long term. I mean, that's just me personally. I don't recommend this for others. Do whatever works for you. If you derive value from many, many books written by many, many people, by all means, it is helpful material. Sure, but a lot of it can be distilled to a blog post, usually.
Yeah. It's funny. I always ask the question. I get such variety of answers from founders, but there's a couple camps. There's the camp that is really invested in the business and startup books, which they find success out of. But then there's the other camp that is very much in line with what you're talking about, which is kind of stepping away from the day-to-day learning, but also being able to take your mind away and get a little bit more creative. It offers a little bit different sense of creativity that you get from that experience.
Right. But if I were to give like one book that I personally kind of like, which means kind of useful, what have I read that like was not like immediately obvious, and then that implemented at least partially, or had in the back of our mind that had some sort of an impact? There's a book called Who, Who by Something Smart. Basically just Google Who hiring book. Basically, you'll find it. It's a short one, and it talks about hiring and the interview process, and what it takes to build like a team, so to speak. Yeah, there were some actionable points that I found useful.
Amazing. Yeah. I know we're at the end of the episode here, but I always like to give my guests a chance to give us your plugs and let us know where we can find you, where we can use your service. Let us know your websites, your LinkedIn's, your Discord channels. Where can we as an audience, and even maybe as potential customers, find you and be a fan and also use the technology?
I mean, our website is a good place to start. That's windscribe.com, for Windscribe, and control-D.com. And you can reach me via good old email at my first name at either one of those domains, or at Windscribe, you can write Control-D. And you can also check us out on Twitter, especially the Windscribe Twitter. It's very unusual in
I love that.
For a company, or especially a VPN company. So you can hit us up at windscribe.com. That's the handle.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Yegor, it was such an interesting conversation, not only describing the technology and VPNs, and really kind of, I guess, taking down the mystique of what a VPN is and boiling it down, but also the benefits of going with a service like yours, where they have the different filters that allow you to control the privacy and the data that these trackers are extracting from the IP address. And that a fascinating conversation, but your journey as a founder was incredible. The lessons about bootstrapping and where to spend your money. I enjoyed the conversation, but I hope you enjoyed yourself, and thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, it was nice speaking to you.
Of course.